Hi, this is Eva with Eva's Eats, and if you're anything like me, you've been cooking at home a lot more lately. And one thing that we have noticed is that we were spending way too much money on takeout pizza. So I wanted to show you a recipe today for making homemade pizza dough and how to make your own pizza at home for pennies on the dollar. But first, let's go shopping. We're going to need a few staple ingredients for making pizza at home. All-purpose flour, salt, sugar, active dry yeast, and olive oil. Now let's talk sauce. You can buy the canned stuff at the grocery store, or for best bang for your buck, you should make homemade, which I personally think tastes much better. And for that, you need canned tomato sauce, sugar, salt, minced garlic, and Italian seasoning. For cheese, I wouldn't go with anything except just mozzarella, and you're going to want it made with whole milk and a low moisture content. I could get into explaining all the reasons why, but I just honestly think it tastes better. For toppings, today we're just using store-bought pepperoni, but once you get a handle on the basics of making your own pizza at home, you can go from there with a variety of toppings, whatever you want. Now that we have all of our ingredients, let's make the dough. First, we're going to start out with 3.5 cups flour, and then we're going to add to that salt, sugar, and our yeast. Some people like to bloom their yeast first, but it's not necessary with this recipe as long as you know that your yeast is active. Today I'm using a stand mixer, which isn't necessary, but I prefer to use it. So we're gonna turn it on and mix the dry ingredients, and as it's going, we will add our oil and warm water. Now the stand mixer is not necessary. You can do this whole thing by hand. It just takes a little bit longer and more elbow grease. We're gonna keep this mixing until the dough starts to form a ball and isn't sticking to the sides of the bowl. And as you'll notice, the dough here is a little bit sticky, which means that we need to add some extra flour to it. I'm going to add it a tablespoon at a time. This recipe can take 3.5 cups of flour up to 4, and we started with 3.5, so the sticky consistency is understandable at this stage. Once the dough has started to form a ball on the hook and doesn't look sticky and has a slightly firm texture to it, that means it's ready to come out. We will now turn off the stand mixer and lightly flour our surface here and take the dough out of the bowl and form it into a ball with our hands. And now we're going to transfer it to another bowl, which we are going to grease with 2 teaspoons of olive oil. I'm gonna spread the oil around in the bowl with a pastry brush first, and then as we put the dough in there, just kind of move it around to get the oil saturating the ball all over. Then we're going to put plastic wrap over the top of the bowl and let it sit for about an hour and wait for the dough to rise. Now that our pizza dough has risen, and before we get to working with it, we're going to turn the oven on to 500 degrees. And today I'm going to be working with a pizza steel. Previously, I had worked with a baking stone, and that didn't work out so great for me. It broke. But we've been using a pizza steel now for a while, and I find that I like it much better. The crust turns out with a much nicer consistency, and beans that you cook at a higher temperature, the pizza cooks faster. Once you get your pizza steel in there, you want it to be in the oven for about a half hour before you actually cook your pizza. This is the pizza peel that I'm going to be using to put our pizza in the oven, and we want to sprinkle it with a little cornmeal first so that our pizza crust doesn't stick to it and it easily slides off into the oven. And now we're going to pull our crust over onto the pizza peel and start adding our toppings. So first we're going to start out with our pizza sauce. Today I am just using jarred pizza sauce from the store. You're gonna find for your price point, it's gonna cost you a little bit more than making it yourself, but the difference really is negligible at this point. It's more of a preference. I'm doing it to save time today. So we're gonna pour it onto the dough and spread it with the back of a spoon. Really, it's just a matter of preference of how much sauce you like, but I find just the right amount is just enough that you think it's not quite. And then today we're just making a pepperoni pizza, so we're just going to start spreading our pepperoni out, and last we're going to put the mozzarella cheese on. And I shredded this by hand. It comes in about a 16-ounce package, and I use about a third of that. Once again, just like with your sauce, you just want enough cheese to cover the top. If you feel like it's not quite enough, that's about where you want it to be, because as it melts, it becomes more than what you think. And now our pizza is ready to put in the oven, and we're just gonna slide it on in there, and it should be done in about 5 minutes. You just want to leave your pizza in the oven long enough for the cheese to bubble up and maybe brown a little. You don't want to leave it in so long that the cheese starts to separate and you get large pools of oil. And I like to leave it in there just long enough for the crust to start getting a little brown, not too much, because with a steel it cooks up pretty fast. You could burn it quicker than you think. Well, it looks like our pizza's done. As you can see, the cheese is a nice and bubbly consistency. Our crust has set up, and we're just gonna slide the pizza peel in there and take it out. Doesn't that look beautiful? Let's slice this up and try a piece. Now, to me, this pizza tastes just as good as a pizza that I could get at any of the restaurants around here, and I saved a lot of money in making it myself. A pizza like this for takeout would probably cost around $15. This was like a third of the cost. I hope you try this at home and let me know what you think.